for joining Legal and Tax Tips for September. I'm going to discuss 3 items today. The first item would be why you should read a contract before you sign it or before you enter into any type of agreement. You need to know the terms. Secondly, I'm going to discuss some scams. And then lastly, I'm going to give some pointers as to how to be safe when buying things online. Okay, in South Africa, we have an accepted rule that when you sign an agreement, it means that you read the contents of the agreement, you understood the contents of the agreement, and that you agree with it. So just by making your mark on that piece of paper or putting your signature there, you confirm those 3 things. This is important to take note of, as it is unfortunately a reality that there are people out there who do not read a contract. They don't read a contract, they just sign it and hope for the best. Or alternatively, the contract is extremely long and they don't want to read through all of it, and then they trust the person who is explaining it to them that that person is telling or explaining the full contract. Now, I'm going to use a typical example. I go into a shop and I want to buy, let's say, an iPhone. I'm going to buy that phone and I have to sign a contract for that phone. When I sign that contract, the person who is selling me the phone, he's going to explain the terms and conditions of that contract to me. And then, but he's not going to explain the full terms and conditions. He's going to run through the contract with me piece by piece and say, this is how this works, and this is how that works. Now, it is my responsibility to read each and every clause. Even if I sit there for 3 hours, I need to read each clause and understand what it means and then also agree with it. So usually what happens is you want to buy the phone, you're excited about the phone, you sign all the agreements and you go home and you play on your phone. 3 or 4 months down the line, you see, but now you have an extra charge on your account and you don't understand why. You call the shop or the brand and you say, what happened here? Why am I paying this extra amount? And they say, please refer to your contract on this page where you agree to insurance or to an additional data every 3 months or anything as such. It could be anything. So it is extremely important to read an agreement before you sign it. Another example would be timeshare. Now, that's been a thing that's been going on for years, where you go out and they tell you about this wonderful package that you can buy, and you can go on holiday every 2 weeks, and they take you into a dimly lit room and they give you a contract that's printed on both sides, and you have to read it there, and they want you to sign it so that you can get your meal or whatever they are going to offer you that night. So there is also a situation where they know that people do not want to read a contract, and they abuse that situation. And then once you sign it, you start paying these fees. 10 years down the line, you decide you're not using the timeshare, you want to sell it. And then lo and behold, in the contract, it states that you cannot cancel the agreement. And the only way to get rid of your shares would be to transfer it to another person. The rights cannot be destroyed. So this is a perpetual thing. You cannot get rid of this. So that is, once again, one of the situations where you do not read a contract and the person who explains it to you do not explain it in full, but because you sign it, because you put your signature there, you say that I have read this, I understood this, and I agree with this. So when you approach a court with regards to this, it is your responsibility to now try and prove that you didn't read it and why you didn't read it. And also, that's not a defense. The only defense that you can bring up is either you were coerced into it or alternatively you were forced. And that is a difficult thing to prove. Also remember that due to changing times, we can now sign agreements, or not sign agreements, but agree to contracts over telephone or WhatsApp or any new type of media that we can use. So when, once again, a typical example would be somebody calls you on the telephone, they tell you, I have this wonderful deal, you get 4 phones and you only pay for 1. And he explains to you the terms and conditions as far as his script goes, and he tells you can find the terms and conditions on their website, or they'll email it to you at a later stage or anything as such. But you on that telephone states that yes, you agree, and you agree to the price, and you agree to the 4 phones, and you agree to where they can deliver it, which means that you finalize the contract and you have not read the terms in full. And then let's say there's something wrong with this phone, and now you want to send it back, and they say, sorry, the contract is for this special offer of we get 4 phones for the price of 1. You cannot return any of them, even if they're broken. Okay, of course, there are other issues to discuss here, such as the Consumer Protection Act, but I'm using it as a fictional situation to explain. So yeah, basic rules. When somebody gives you an agreement to sign or anything to sign, read it and make sure that you understand why you are signing that, and then you apply your signature to that document. You don't apply the signature and then hope that you understood or that someone else will explain to you at a later stage. Okay, the next topic is scams. It is important to take note that scams are on the rise due to, I assume, social situations that are not going well. So there's a lot of scams out there. The typical scam is always somebody sends you an email stating that a long lost family member in Australia passed away, and that you are now the beneficiary of 10 million Australian dollars, and that you need to pay a certain amount of money to get access to this. Of course, that they make you pay for something and you never get anything out of it. But the scams these days are not as straightforward and obvious as they used to be. There are still some of them out there, but there's also other ones that are a bit more, how can I say, disguised. The first one that I want to discuss is a scam that is disguised as a loan. Now, usually the scammers would advertise either on Facebook, or they send out direct SMSs or WhatsApps, or they put something in a newspaper where they say quick and easy loans, even if you're blacklisted. And then it is usually accompanied by a ridiculous interest rate of 3% or 2%, which is lower than what you will get on your bond on your house. So that's a wonderful interest rate that you can get there. And also you can borrow amounts up to 2 million rand easily and quick and fast. So not everybody responds to this, but now somebody responds to it. They're in a desperate situation and they think, okay, this is my way out. I can get a loan and then I can get my life back on track. When you contact them, they tell you, hello, thank you for calling us. Yes, it's wonderful. We can give you a loan. Welcome to our services. And then after they send you contracts and documents, they then tell you, okay, your loan has been approved for a certain amount of money. Everything looks legit and genuine. And then the issues start. Firstly, they would come and say, okay, but firstly, you need to pay an amount of money, either for services that they rendered, or maybe to draw up a contract, or to get the money from abroad into South Africa, or to pay SARS, or anything in that line. It would be an excuse. It is reasonably possible, but you are not sure. Now, let's say you pay 1,500 rand for the contract. They tell you, thank you for that. And then they come back to you and say, okay, now the next thing you need to pay for is X. And then after you pay X, then they say the next thing you have to pay for is Y. And this is how it continues. So they keep on asking money and you keep on paying as you think, okay, I'm paying them 20,000 rand now, but I am getting 2 million after I'm paying them all of this. This is how the psychology behind it. So at some point in time, you realize, okay, I'm never getting this money. They're just getting money out of me somehow. Now you go to your attorney or you go to the police, and then you realize, but I spoke to Michael over the telephone and this Michael person doesn't exist. The problem is usually the person that you deal with on the telephone. They don't use their real names. It's not their real numbers. It is a temporary number that they use. After they use it for, let's say, 20 or 30 people that they scammed, that number gets destroyed or that phone gets destroyed and you can't get hold of them ever again. The email addresses is also temporary in nature. And then you usually start looking at the bank accounts. Now, there's various ways that they deal with the bank accounts now to get the money out and in. But one of them would be that they use a mule. So if I wanted to have a mule, I would say, I'm paying you 2,000 rand. to a person to go to a bank and open up a bank account for me. And they give me the PIN, they give me the cards, they give me everything. Eventually, when the police finds out that I'm running a scam and they try to follow the money, then they're getting to that person, and that person says, no, but I opened up an account for somebody else. It wasn't for me. I didn't get the money. And then it starts getting extremely difficult to trace anybody or to trace that money. So that's usually how it works. So be careful with these types of things. General rule of thumb, if something sounds too good to be true, it usually is. If, for example, you are blacklisted or you cannot get a loan from a reputable bank, nobody else is going to give you a loan anyway, unless it's a loan shark. So be wary of that. Okay, another type of scam that I want to discuss also is a type of scam where they try and extort you with information. So you would get an email, and the email would say, we have private information of you, or we have photos of you, or we have information of you that might be detrimental to your employment, and you need to pay us a certain amount of money before we would release it, or alternatively, we are going to release it. Now, these types of scams, they send it out in mass. So they send it to 40, 50,000 people, and then 2 or 3 gullible people would reply and say, okay, please don't share this, even if they have nothing. They don't have photos or anything, but people are trusting and they are gullible, so they come forward and say, please do not share this, and they pay them money. So please take notice, there are such types of scams as well. Lastly, let's move to the last topic. That would be buying things over the internet. Now, I'm not specifically referring here to buying things from, let's say, a reputable brand like Takealot or Checkers online or anything as such. I'm referring to third-party websites where third parties can advertise on that website. So a typical example is I have a website and anybody can advertise anything there and sell it to another person. So I'm just facilitating. I have the facility in which you can communicate with the other party. Typical examples of this would be something like OLX or Bid or Buy or anything as such. Most of the people on these platforms do actually sell something in return for money and things go well, but there are chancers out there. So you get situations where they advertise a product or a service, they expect payment up front, and then unfortunately this product or service doesn't exist. They just have, they fabricate a product or service and you pay for it and then they disappear. So once again, I'm going to use my iPhone example. I go onto such a website, I download photos from a website of an iPhone in a box, etc. And I put it there and I say, I'm selling this iPhone. It is worth 25,000 Rand, but I'm selling it for 8,000 Rand as I am moving out of the country, for example. Included into this, I would say I'm not going to entertain chances, and then also I expect payment up front, and once payment is received, I will then courier or ship this to you to your address. And of course, I'm going to say that if there are any issues with the phone, I'll fully refund you, knowing that I don't even own this phone. So let's say I advertise this and I get 2 or 3 people who are interested in this. I tell them, I speak to them over the phone, and they say, okay, they want to buy this item. I send them banking details. Once again, it could be somebody else's banking details, or I ask you to pay me in cash or anything as such. Send me cash, and you pay me the money, and then I go silent. I start ignoring your calls, and I do not address your queries, and you never receive the phone. So although it's not everybody who does this, do take note that it does happen. So Facebook Marketplace, please be wary when you look at adverts. Maybe they sell, usually with the times, take for example, when load shedding becomes prevalent again, then they advertise 5 kilowatt generators at 1,000 Rand each. Everybody flocks because it is a massive deal that you're getting for 1,000 Rand. You're getting a generator. But of course, now 20 people pay them 1,000 Rand, but there's no generator that they sell, and there's no actual shop front. So you can't see them, you can't inspect it. The general rule of thumb to follow is if you buy something online, make sure that you are able to inspect it before you pay for it. If it is a situation where they're selling and they are in Cape Town and you are in Mpumalanga and you can't physically inspect it, it is a risk that you're taking. So if the person is close to you, go inspect the item and then pay them there, instead of sending money and hoping that this person is actually genuine and that they would actually honor the agreement. Thank you for joining us today. As a short summary, remember that we discussed that you must read an agreement before you sign it. Be wary of scams. Apply your mind. If something is too good to be true, it usually is. And then also be wary when you are buying things online. Always try and peruse or inspect the item before you pay for it. Thank you.